He may appear.
Yes to that mic, but no to the other mic.
Oh my gosh. And so my year will begin slightly crazy. We'll start with the minutes of January 3rd. Did we have any changes,
There are lots of changes, but they've all been
questions?
corrected.
All been corrected. So based on Pam's input of what I didn't see, since I wasn't at the meeting, I didn't know anyway. So perfect. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes for January 3rd? The corrected minutes?
I move to approve them.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and so moved. All right. The NRI update was supposed to, updated version was supposed to be presented to us in January. They didn't finish the final, so it's now going to hopefully be presented to Leslie tomorrow, was the deadline. And then she's going to set up a special town board meeting to present it to the town, try to get it out to the public as soon as possible so that they can read before the actual meeting. So hopefully in February, March, maybe the end of the February, but probably March will be when that gets presented. The wetlands law revision. How did that end up? Are we still working on trying to agree on the wording?
I thought last time we were told we needed to wait until they asked us, right? Like last time we kind of talked about it, Pam gave us the update, and then we were told it was.
Yeah. Okay, so Pam's not on the task force anymore for the zoning code. I am. So now I've got to be brought up to date to what they've all been discussing, and they didn't know where we were. So I said, I'd find out tonight, which I technically need Pam. So
But she had 3 things she wanted to.
she had those 3 things to change to them, but I don't think that got to them maybe, or I don't think it has yet. So I'm going to talk to Pam.
I think we talked about the difference between substantive
Yeah.
and significant. And significant means a big change, substantive means that something just changed. And I think we had said that we thought the original language, which was substantive, was probably better for protecting everything, as opposed to a lot of things that have to make a huge change in the wetland law if you use the word significant.
Right.
And so I think I thought we agreed on that.
Yeah, and Pam had written it up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that was in the minutes, and
Yeah.
there were a couple things.
Yeah, that's written in the minutes.
Will
So
constitute the minor project removal of specific reference if the planning board finds should include oversight committees, not just one agency. She was going to
Right.
address those. with
and
them.
we were going to write, but we're going to write that up to give to the task force. Is that
She
correct?
was going to do that to address the CAC concerns of the planning board members. She circulated the draft.
Which
So-
is, yeah.
And so basically, if I understood this correctly, going back to the original language, we thought that was a bit more environmentally friendly language. And the applicant has to first say why they need it where it is, and not the planning board coming in first. So I think that's what we talked about, that we thought the original language was better than the change. Emily, who wrote that up? Well, whoever wrote that up, we thought that the original change was, language was better than the original changes that they made, and we recommended that they stay with the law as it existed.
If the applicant needs to show that there's no reasonable alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. The way.
and that's the way
it
it
is
read
now.
originally, that the applicant would have to do that. And then the planning board would look at it, as they always have done, to see if there were alternatives. So if I understood this correctly, I thought this is what we agreed to, that we felt the original language was more environmentally protective of, and that was our job, to protect the environment.
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah, and there, I mean, it's written up pretty well in the minutes
Okay.
to say
Yeah,
that.
to say, to state,
Just went
to
back
state
and-
that.
yeah. I mean, it's there.
We will, yeah, we'll just make sure, as I said, I'll talk to Pam, make sure I get that to the task force correctly. Alrighty, so then the planning board and the ZBA updates,
All right.
Howard?
Planning board was extremely interesting in that section up here. The The one that was the big item was the clear subdivision. And remember, this is the one that sort of started with a farm, and they came in and they drew lines on the map, and they said, this is what we want to do with our 98-something acre farm. And then apparently people became concerned about this, and they started to write letters to the planning board. And the applicant decided instead to postpone the appearance till next month. And the gist of it is that there's much more. It's not just drawing lines on a map. You're supposed to look at all of the environmental issues. Now, I think we all have copies of the land subdivision regulations. I think that was sent to everybody. Did you?
Mhm.
They haven't looked at that yet, and I think that's one of the things that we should tell them, that we think that this is an important provision. It says proper provision shall be made for leaving undeveloped natural areas and corridors to mitigate the adverse environmental impacts of subdivision, and to sustain a diversity of native vegetation and wildlife, to protect resources, agricultural land, and scenic viewsheds, and to implement the town's policy of protecting of its environmental and cultural resources pursuant to the master plan zoning law. This is the one that we all saw, and they haven't addressed that yet. And I think we as the CAC should say we would like to see that addressed in anything future provisions that you do, and then we can comment on how you're addressing it. So I'm asking if everybody is agreeable to send that on to the planning board, because the public hearing is still open. They haven't closed the public hearing because the applicant is just asked for a postponement. And Susan Meany said the public hearing was still open, just to be sure that we're not assuming anything.
Mhm.
So I would like to make a motion or whatever resolution that we send this on to them as something we'd like to see them address.
Sorry.
Does that have a code number to it?
Does this have code? Does it have a code? Usually you have a code, or is it just the policy section?
Well, it's subdivision regulations, Article
Article 1,
1,
Section
Section
11,
11,
F.
subset F.
Subsection.
You give that to.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
You all should
I just
have
wanted
it
to read
someplace
it.
in your emails, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can find it if you're like me.
So I know that the clear applicants have postponed for the moment because they're getting legal counsel.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't know about our steps anymore of how we should do things.
No, it's still open to comment from the public hearing. For some reason, I don't understand why, even though we're under government on the town website, they consider us public. I don't understand that. Maybe that's something we could look into at some point. Why are we public?
I know.
This is the government. And normally when we comment during the open hearing. So this is our time to comment, basically. In fact, if they hadn't canceled this, I would have said that this is something the CAC saw already, and we would like you maybe to consider it, but they didn't come up at all. So we're well within our time limit to send this into them.
Yeah, we can send it in.
Yeah. And now the other thing that happened with them is after they ended the meeting, they turned off the Zoom, and they decided to go, and it's still a public meeting, by the way, according to the open meeting laws, as long as they're doing business, it's still a public meeting. So the fact that they turned the Zoom off doesn't change anything. And then they started discussing going into executive session to revisit the clear application. And that's as far as we got there, because they told me I have to leave. And I asked, why do I have to leave under the open meeting laws? There is nothing. Then they said, oh, attorney-client privilege. I'm not quite sure what that means either, or how it applies and what they can do and what they can't do in an executive session. But anyway, I left, and that's what they discussed after the clear subdivision again. So I don't know what they're going to do next meeting, if they'll have a point of view yet or not. And that was even though the whole thing only lasted about 15 minutes publicly, that was the big event in the meeting. The other one was Fletcher Connick's property, which I forgot the number of, up in Mabbittsville.
3788,
That might be it.
maybe?
The person, they had, I guess, an attorney there for the owner, and they wanted to have provisions to have any of the things in there be approved as long as it's inside the building and it's not violating anything on the code. So they won't have to come back again if they get a new business in there, they want to combine two separate businesses, and the planning board approved that. So that, I'm not sure if that goes along with what they have elsewhere in the code, but that's not our concern. This is a zoning code issue, because they do have a list of things that are approved in the code.
Mhm.
And that came up with that little building on the corner that once was the deli, and then that was bought, and the man wanted to run some sort of a business in there, a rental and a business, and that all had to go along with what was written in the code, specifically that this is allowed, this is allowed, this is allowed. I didn't hear that in this meeting, that there was going to be another code of what's allowed in that building. They just were approved to get permits all at once. They will not keep coming back as long as it didn't violate anything.
Mhm.
All right, so that's all that occurred there. Now the ZBA, had several things on there. Most of them dealt with setbacks. Perhaps okay, let's start with what didn't happen. The Corona property on Fowler Road, which is in the middle of a big wet area, and she has a lot of acreage. She wants to expand an old house which sits near the road so that she can live downstairs, which is understandable. And she didn't come in. She just will be back again next month for that.
Mhm.
Assuming they'll have a map at some point showing any of the wetlands, or they'll show the Hudsonia map or something, we'll have a better idea where the building is going to go and see what's wrong with that. And then there was one for a front yard setback and 25% rule. This is on Diam Road. And that wasn't addressed either at the moment. And then there was one for a variance or a second floor addition to a garage. And that has nothing to do with us either, because it's just a coding thing. So some of their stuff has nothing to do with us per se, because it's just code issues. The 25 rule, though, should be rather interesting, because that apparently is going to come up again. Because the original code says that non-conforming uses can only be expanded by 25% if they were built before 1975, 71 rather.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, can the ZBA simply say, well, we're ignoring what we were directed to do, and say, well, we'll give you a 35% or 50% variance. So if that's the case, they need to rewrite the code and say that the ZBA may grant any variance they want in size. That language is meaningless. So that has to be still decided. So that's not for us per se, except granting very large variances in a wetlands might be a question that we might want to weigh in on. Okay, and the last one was the Yadgard thing. This has been going on for quite a while. It's the Yadgard thing involves a placement of a swimming pool next to a neighbor's property. And it was approved, and then it's appealed, and there were attorneys involved. Three officials and former officials showed up. Paul Schwartz showed up. What's his name?
Rappelé.
The guy from the zoning board of appeals. The guy that resigned a while back or stepped down.
Was that the one on Stanford Road?
No. He's on Diam. Diam.
Dahan.
Dahan. Well, he showed up and, of course, Alan was there and they were claiming that this is, not a variance for a building, it's a new addition instead, and it's not covered. So this is all legal stuff, doesn't have anything really directly to do with us, except that it may have something to do with, preserving the look and feel of a neighborhood. So that is still ongoing. They didn't make any decision on that either. So that's what happened at the two meetings. And
All right.
any of you are welcome to come to that meeting. Had to be the only one. David used to go a lot of times. Sometimes Mike Herzog showed up to.
Yep.
No limitation on who can come.
Well, hopefully somebody can get there, get it in their schedule.
Yeah.
Thank you, Howard.
Okay.
All right.
Well, let me see, did I get everything in there?
Well, keep
Hang
going.
on
Keep
here.
going.
Okay, so we talked about the difference between substantive and significant, and we talked about the fact that they have to take a look at the section on subdivisions.
Yeah.
We recommend they put that in there as well.
All right.
Permit requirements for Section 9C4, or a written explanation by the applicant as to why the proposed activity can't be located elsewhere. And that's what we said. We don't want the planning board jumping in front of that. And so that should stand. Basically, we're saying, repeating myself, that we don't want changes in the wetlands, but we agree with the original wetlands will be more protective of the environment than the changes they're proposing.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
I'll stop talking.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. So then, under some new things, the zoning code task force, as I said, I'm now taking Pam's place on that, working on a few things. We'll get updates to everybody. Our roundtable for the CAC and the EMC is, I know, February 29th, 6 to 8 p.m. Anyone who can join us, please join us.
It was riveting last time. And they have
Lucky you,
refreshments.
enjoy your trip. But they do have a snow date for March 14th, I think, or something. So, but I know Lisa's going. I know I'm going as long as there's no snow date. And Howard will go, I bet.
Probably.
We sat together.
I know you did.
Presenting
I know
last
you
time.
two sat together last time.
And you present, so you've got two people who are capable of presenting.
No comments there. So anyway, so that's there. Anyone can get there. I have nothing else. Just a volunteer for next month's meeting.
We picked them.
And we picked Pam, so
We picked
hopefully
Pam.
she's there. So if for any reason she's away, I know.
She's so good at
If
it.
she's any reason she's away, then next month's meeting will be canceled, right? Because
That's
We won't have enough people.
we won't have enough people. We won't have a quorum. So we'll keep that up one way or the other. Anyone else have anything?
I have a question.
Go
So
ahead.
for the clear subdivision,
Mhm,
given that it's postponed and the planning board hasn't asked us for
Mhm.
something,
mhm.
are we working on a letter or are we waiting for that?
I think we're just gonna do. So
I
we
think
just
this-
Just
public
kind of
hearing is
reach
open.
out with that.
I think,
Yeah,
remind them that this is on the books.
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, because there's nothing else to report at this stage,
Yeah.
and as you say, they haven't
Kind of
asked us
lets
for
them know
anything.
we're watching too.
Yeah, but we're still here.
I think hopefully if they come to a decision at next month's meeting, then they're gonna ask us for further advice at that point.
And there was confusion about which zoning code, but this is the same and
Yeah,
all of
no,
the variations on the zoning code.
yeah, no, it's just,
This is-
there's just certain things in the code from that does not linked. What
Right.
it says doesn't go to anything in the code, and I'm like, okay, this makes no sense. So how are we going forward to what the code says? It's okay, I
Another
calmed
section
down
of
over
code
that a little
is the
bit.
Subdivision code. We've used subdivisions before.
Mhm.
You might
Mm.
remember the guy that wanted to put not the pools, the patios in.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was another version of this one, or if
No.
Yeah.
if we said,
This is it.
This
This
is
is
the
it.
one.
So
Yeah.
hopefully
This very
we don't give
rarely
anybody
gets
the wrong
addressed so that
information.
nothing
Mhm.
changes in it.
Yeah, well, we need some changes to link things up correctly, but that's a whole nother subject.
Mhm.
So any other open comments, questions, or? No, Adelaide, public, we'll even let the public speak tonight.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just glad to hear you guys are,
We're here.
not surprised that, that you're paying, attention to the clear subdivision. I think for me, it was rather disappointing and somewhat alarming that you weren't, that you weren't brought in to review that application. And I think there are parts that apparently, that you probably read the Susan and Crystal letter, there's so many subdivisions, there's codes and regulations, and there's a few different subdivisions. It is, a lot, and it's also in an ag overlay district. That triggers a whole bunch of stuff,
Mhm.
cluster subdivision.
Yeah, which is-
There's a lot of review.
Which is why I believe the planning board went into executive session about it last night. I think they had some things to clear up.
Yeah, because they gave it a neck deck. And that.
And they're,
was truly-
and they're probably all working on that now. That's what they're probably having. That's what, that could have been what the executive session was about. So
Yeah.
That-
Okay.
they weren't, I do know the planning board aren't trying to do anything underneath everybody. They're, they're trying to do their jobs the best the volunteers can do
No,
their
no,
jobs.
As I said in my letter, it was kind of, for me, it was, a matter of, very poor advice, really. And so I didn't, that's my theory of it all.
Yeah.
Because all you had to do is read the zoning, and if you read it really carefully, it's pretty obvious. There are many more steps to go through, but it's this theory of subdivision, is sort of this quickie theory of subdivisions that's started to trend, like we can just put a bunch of lines on a map and we don't have to really do a
Right.
lot of inventory, but actually a subdivision triggers a natural resource inventory.
Right. So they're, that's part of what they're trying to get lined up with these
Yeah.
checklists for each board.
Yeah.
Because in all
I'm sure
fairness,
it's very confusing.
it is very confusing,
Well, that's
and
why-
everyone's a volunteer. They're not
No, I-
professionals at this.
Yeah.
They're doing this in their own time, and they don't always have time to sit and read through
Well,
everything, and they have to rely on our consultants. And sometimes the consultants don't give all the information, so it's kind of hard. So,
Well, that
and
was really why I put in my letter that I think the town really needs full-time planning and zoning specialists that are trained and educated in planning and zoning to vet every application, like a lot of, very, more progressive and
right,
have a professional team, salary paid, and not a consultant that's going from town to town to town, a big corporate firm.
right.
Nothing against them, but it's not the full picture, and I think that one really brings it home. That's
Yeah.
the way that's handled.
Yep. So I know the town is working on it. I know everyone's doing their best. Trying to,
I'm sure, I think, I feel bad that people aren't supported better,
Yeah,
actually.
it is what it is right now. So let's see what happens. Leslie, do you have anything to say? She may not. She's there. She's there. She's just gotta. Yeah, she's muted at the moment.
So, yeah, I create sympathy for the volunteers.
Yeah, no, and, again, some things get slipped up and not understood correctly, so.
It's me.
Technical, sorry.
Oh, you,
We're having,
do you need a tech?
oh no, it's way more fun.
Oh, I think you need to unmute. I think maybe you needed to unmute me there. Sorry about that.
Can you talk,
I'm in my
Leslie?
car having just left a basketball game. Can you hear me?
I think she's gone.
Can you hear me, Margaret?
That's all right.
Margaret,
Sorry,
can you hear
Leslie.
me? Can you hear me?
Okay, so that's it.
We're done. Can I have a motion?
I move we close.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, wait, can you
Thank
hear me?
everybody.
Is the next meeting March what?
DLC webinar.